people and stories from all walks of life.
I probably don't look like I chopped cotton or picked cotton, but I did. And now, this is a $500,000 probably home, up to $500,000 home.
You'll hear success stories from rags to riches that will inspire you to aspire to be great. Be the first to know, but only on Big A TV. GAM Recap Show, the show where objectivity is manifested to the core. Watch out as hosts Ib Senghor and the erudite Sheriff Cora dig deep into the trending issues including politics, health, education, entertainment, and much more. Join us every Saturday at 5 p.m. GMT, only on Big A TV. GAM Recap Show, the show where objectivity is manifested to the core. Watch out as hosts Ib Senghor and the erudite Sheriff Cora dig deep into the trending issues including politics, health, education, entertainment, and much more. Join us every Saturday at 5 p.m. GMT, only on Big A TV.
Hello, viewers. Thank you for joining us. This is the GAM Recap Show, a show that comes live on Big A TV every Saturday at 12 p.m. Central Time, which is 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and 5 p.m. Gambia Time. This is your host, Ib Senghor, and I also have my co-host, Sheriff. So let me have Sheriff to go ahead and introduce himself.
Good afternoon, viewers in the United States, and good evening, viewers in the Gambia or the parts of the world. Welcome to the GAM Recap Show. We are glad to have you today to join us to discuss issues relevant to the Gambia.
All right, thanks for that introduction, Sheriff. So today, we have a very, very interesting topic that we would like to discuss. And also, if you are interested in joining the show, please, call us via WhatsApp. The number is 214-600-7114. You can join and you can also contribute via WhatsApp, and we'll be able to share your conversation with us. So today, the topic today is, how to use the diaspora returnees in the Gambia in terms of development, of course. So we've noticed over the years, when Yahya Jammeh was in power back in Gambia, we saw the Roots Homecoming Festival being celebrated, I think, every 2 years. And we used to see, African Americans and other Africans in the diaspora, coming out in droves to the Gambia just to celebrate with us, to celebrate the ancestral history. And now that, Jammeh is gone, we're not seeing that enough, but because of that Roots Homecoming Festival that we used to have back then, a lot of African Americans, started thinking about the journey to repatriate back to Africa. And Ghana also has something similar. I think, I can't remember the name, but something homecoming or the year of the return, something like that. And we've seen a significant number of people also relocating from the United States, from other European countries back to Ghana. And, these returnees coming, a lot of them, coming with a wealth of experience, a wealth of knowledge in terms of, in ways on how to contribute to the development of different countries. So in today's discussion, that's what we would like to talk about. But first, before we delve into the conversation, we would like to have it segmented in 3 or 4 different parts. We would first like to talk about how, can we attract the diaspora to the Gambia? What are some of the factors? What are some of the incentives that the government can put in place? What marketing programs are out there, that would help attract the diaspora to come, to the Gambia, okay? And also, when these diasporans come to the Gambia, what areas of focus would we want to have them on, right? Do you want them, to be, in terms of infrastructural development or, any other socioeconomic development agenda? How do we want to utilize them when they are in the Gambia, right? And also, we know that because these people come in from different backgrounds. That being the case, we have cultural sensitivities here because their cultures vary with ours in the Gambia, of course. So once they come in, they would face some sort of challenges, some sort of experiences, both positive and negative. How can we draw lessons from those challenges that these people face, those experiences, and use those as learning opportunities, right? So with that, we also like to look at the cultural and intellectual clash, because of the variations in cultures. You will notice that, once these diasporans come into the country, they will clash with us either in a cultural platform or in an intellectual way. So that being the case, first, I would like to first talk about, how to attract them, right? So we've seen in the past, even with the Gambia government, they established, sent people, to the embassies, where they are trying to market the image of the Gambia. So at first it was being sold as a smiling coast of the Gambia. And, after a while, that fell on deaf ears, I believe, but they started to rebrand the Gambia as your haven, something like that. So we've noticed, ways of tourists coming into the Gambia, but we don't just want it, to be restricted to tourism only, which is, something that happens occasionally, within various times of the year. But we also want to make sure, that we bring in these talents, these diasporas to come in, think about coming into Africa, staying, or if not staying, but investing in Gambia and, help us, with our economic growth. So with that in place, so Sheriff, I would like you to probably delve into this and tell us, how do you think, what can we do as Gambians and the Gambia government, to be able to help us, attract, some of these diasporas, into the Gambia?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ibrahim, for that overview on the diaspora and Gambia's, economic development. What you said, I can agree less with, the efforts of the Gambian government, especially with regards, to the youth, homecoming festival that we used to have, which I believe initially started during Jammeh's regime. I don't exactly remember the timeline, but I believe, that's when, it started. It picked up steam for the first few years, but then eventually it fizzled away. And I don't think, it's right now that the Youth Homecoming Festival, really fizzled away. I think even before Jammeh left, office, the Youth Homecoming Festival did not have, much attraction like it did, at the beginning. And that's for various reasons, of course. Like you said, Gambia was marketed as a smiling coast of, Africa to the rest of the world. But when you look at, the track record of, the Gambian government, the Gambian APRC government, they were not anything that, we should be smiling about. On the other end of the news, all we see was, mass arrest, dictatorial tendencies, lack of respect for the rule of law and human rights. And when people saw this contradiction, it didn't really make Gambia a place that was, appealing. So a lot of other people, went to other countries like Ghana, Cape Verde, and other countries, within West Africa, that were more appealing to them because they had better, human rights records. So Gambia missed out in a whole lot on that. But besides that, the diaspora within, the development of our country. The government recognizes that, even though Jammeh's government, was not, a democratic government, but they did understand within the economic development of the country. And they did efforts, but I don't think, the efforts were enough. Number one, the way they ruled the country wasn't appealing, as I said, and that made the country less attractive for other people to come and stay in. We've seen them, have, issues, with other foreign countries, foreign companies actually that were in Gambia, Carnegie Company, Pristine Company, just to name a few, that got into, legal tussle with the government because they did not honor the contract that they had with them because it was a system of patronage. So you either be with the Gambia, be with the APRC, or, you are out of the door. And as we said, the contribution of the diaspora is for Gambians abroad, and then other nationalities, who are interested in coming back, to live in the Gambia or bring foreign direct, investment into the Gambia, to be able to have, the right conducive economic environment and policies in place, to protect, their investment. And that wasn't available. And that created a huge problem. But even besides other non-Gambians, who could have come to Gambia, because of, the system of government we had in place during the APRC regime, the Gambians within the Gambia and the Gambians outside the Gambia had a big gap. You would see the country only benefited more from remittances, the money that we sent to our families. But the government in itself lacked that engagement with the citizens abroad. And that was a very unfortunate incident because Gambians were very upset with the APRC government and the things it did in the country. And many genuine Gambians, were opposed to what the government did, to the point that they were not even interested in having to do anything with them. So the benefits were more private than public. The public sector lacked a lot directly. They benefited indirectly because of the remittances that we sent that created some opportunities for poverty alleviation and eradication of hunger and the like within the private sector based on the money that we sent to the families. But within the public sector, there was no engagement. Welcome to this current regime or this current government. It is the same thing. President Adam Barrow and the coalition government came into power. Even prior to them coming into power, the engagement and the participation of the Gambians within the international scene, to make sure that democracy was restored in the Gambia, highlighted the power that we had when we came together to put the Gambian regime out. And Adam Barrow had the massive support of Gambians abroad. A lot of Gambians were very confident for once. We had that optimism that we have a government in place that will promote the interest of grow and eradicate democracy and the like. But eventually, we saw the true colors of the coalition government as it began to fall apart. The same thing that happened within the Jammeh era is the same thing that is repeating itself. So it's a lost opportunity that the coalition government squandered, more so based on the political ambitions of a few individuals and based on their selfish interest, not to really respect upholding the electoral promise that they made to the people, and to promote the general welfare and the economic interests of every Gambia, regardless of party. And this is what has created that gulf between us and them. Now, if you look at most of the online media platforms or in social media, we are going back to what we had during the Jammeh regime. People are more crying and talking about how things are going wrong than to think about ideas that we can contribute towards participating in economic development. So that optimism is completely, I think, lost at this point. We don't have a lot of trust in the coalition government. There's a lot of fracture in our relationship with the government back home. But the last point that you did mention is what does the government have to do to ensure that we attract national development agenda? I think probably what they have to do is to establish trust, and trust is one of the most important factors. They have to listen to the voice of the people abroad, even though we don't have the electoral vote, but our voice matters a lot. I say this because President Adam Barrow, during the campaign and even after the campaign, praised the contribution of the Gambian diaspora within his electoral success. I remember there was a village where he went to, and he said in Mandinka, mbe diaspora ko tentula mbe duwale kadum ko ye kato mun ken dala electoral victory to janne news of kalan biya kono so that recognize the influence that we have as a group, but then you see what's happening right now is there's a big gulf, between us and him, and this is all based on his actions. His actions protect, the aspirations of the people, within the diaspora. And I think, Ibrahim, you can agree with me. If you go to any naming ceremony in the United States, and I believe, it's probably the same, in other parts of, the world, you go to any naming ceremony, any wedding, or whatever. After they name the baby, for the rest of the day, the conversation is all about Gambia.
It's all Gambia and political affairs.
Exactly. So what that means is we have an interest.
Are you breaking out, Sheriff? Can you please lean forward to the mic a little bit?
All right. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Okay. So what that means is we have a very strong interest within the development of our country, because we still have that consciousness of our lineage, and we all want to reconnect with the Gambia. We all want to see a better Gambia.
Right.
But what's happening is, what the government has to do, number one, is the recognition is there, and if you look at, even the way the government is set up, at the Ministry of, Foreign Affairs, they say and diaspora.
And diaspora, right.
So that means they recognize our importance. But the problem is, they do not have an effective strategy or a very strong policy to engage with us. And they have to fill that gap. And how do you fill that gap? Well, we have the embassies abroad. But the embassies, abroad, their role is very limited. Mostly it's consular services. Your passport expires, you renew it. You get a deportation order. If you are lucky, they will help you out. If you are not lucky, they will issue a document for you to be sent back home.
Correct.
So the government has to find a way to ensure that the embassies are given the right tools to engage with Gambians abroad.
Okay, so let's hold it there a little bit. Hold on that thought real quick. So let me bring in our first guest today. His name is Michael Bass. And Michael, let me add him to the stream. Michael, you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can.
All right, Michael, welcome to the GAM Recap Show. And this is your first time joining us. So the topic today is how to use the diaspora returnees in the Gambia. And Sheriff touched on a very important topic, talking about trust, okay? Me personally, I believe that the substratum of any symbiotic relationship is trust. So if there isn't any trust between in any relationship, that we cannot see that relationship augment in any way, right?
Yeah.
So, what we're talking about right now is, what strategies can the Gambia government put in place, to help entice the diaspora. And when I say the diaspora, it means Gambian nationals abroad as well as citizens of other countries. What can we do to help bring them back to the Gambia? Not repatriating physically, but in terms of like foreign direct investment opportunities, to help make sure that they're having some significant impact as a whole, not only at an individual level. Because a lot of us, what we're doing here is to send money home through remittances, or maybe, when you look at us in Africa, even some of us in the diaspora, our development agenda is self-centered, right? As long as I come to the United States or Europe, get my education, get a degree, get a good job, send money to my people, build a good house for my family members. As long as my family is eating and getting a bag of rice and food every time, you're okay. That's where our mindset sits. That's our ceiling of thought process, right? So how can we break that ceiling and also ensure that the government is involved in that process? So Sheriff mentioned trust, which I believe is the basic, fundamental, situation that needs to happen for us, to embrace each other from a diaspora standpoint and the government. But
Yeah.
what do you think, what's your thought process in this? What do you think we need to do in terms of rebuilding that trust? And also, what other programs can we put in place to ensure that Gambians abroad and other citizens abroad are attracted to Gambia, in terms of helping us, develop our economy?
Yeah, thanks, Sheriff and Apes, for inviting me to join this forum. Um, I know Sheriff talked about trust. That's part of the government's responsibility to establish that. And on the part of the diasporans, it's also sacrifice. Those two have to work together, what I believe. So Gambia, unfortunately, we are one of the poorest countries in Africa, and there's nothing much. There's so much little we can offer to the diasporans to get them back to Gambia. So in the past regime, one of the biggest problems we have seen, people leave Gambia and never go back to Gambia, not because they hate Gambia or just they don't want to, but because of the policies set by Jammeh regime and the dictatorship that was going on. There was no way they could go back home because there was no trust between Jammeh government and the people outside Gambia. Because you might go back home, get arrested, or get jailed, or get killed. Because we have seen that happen. And thank God that we have got rid of him, and now we have the Barrow government. So we're still in the same predicament. Our economy is still terrible. It's still poor. Corruption is rampant as always. And so what Barrow should do with his government is set policies, what I believe in, that will try to, as much as possible, to eliminate corruption, because that's one of the biggest problems. People say, I can go back to Gambia because I can't live this way. Being out in diaspora, in Europe, Asia, in the West, there's corruption everywhere, but there are laws that try as much as possible to make sure those things are limited and they don't happen as much as possible. Olivier, that is busy. So if they can make those things happen, just make policies, make rules, make laws. If you break the law, such and such is going to happen. If you're a corrupt official, such and such is going to happen. You're going to lose your job. You might end up in jail. And they can start with those little basic things. The economy, like the remittances sending back home, they're good, but going back home, all the thousands of Gambians in Europe and US, if we go back home, our impact will be far more greater than all remittances we send back home. But that also takes a lot of sacrifice, because living the comfort you're in Europe or US, living the peace and living the system, how organized they are, and trying to go back to Gambia to start from zero, start working in a government that might not be prepared to change systems. It's going to take a lot of sacrifices. I've seen Ghana a couple of years ago trying to get their citizens to go back to Ghana to develop their country, but the government took some steps to make life better. Their democracy, it's way much better than Gambia. It has improved over the years. Senegal are doing the same. Rwanda did the same. It's all about letting people have freedom, trying to make sure that we don't encourage dictatorship in our country, trying to make sure people have the liberty to practice what they want, and in the business sector, trying to even make taxes, because those are the biggest problem with business guys. They always say, if I go to Gambia, start a business, they might tax me too much. But how about encourage Gambians? If you're a Gambian coming back home, you might not be taxed for 2, 3 years, 5 years, whatever it may be, to set up a business. And that way, we'll be able to encourage people going back to Gambia. In the healthcare sector, like our healthcare sector is terrible, unfortunately. And it's been like that for so many years. RBTH, it's been built since God knows when. And we still, literally, it's pretty much still the same, because the government is not investing much to develop that hospital. So if the government put a little bit investment, showing that we're trying to make our healthcare sector better, or other private sectors better, other Gambians abroad are like, oh, the government is trying, so I can actually go and help the government and help the people of Gambia part of the development process. But until the Barrow government takes a step, it's gonna remain the same. People are gonna just send remittances, send a few dollars, send a few euros, and not go back home because of the risk and that involves in it, losing all their, like going back to the same normal Gambian and not be able to make a change. So the government, better government should really develop rules and regulations that can encourage us to go back to Gambia and make an impact. So it's going to take a lot of sacrifice from us, but it's going to take a lot of work from the Gambia government to build up trust and to build up policies that will send us back home. I think that's the key. That's the main key to get us back home.
Thank you for that, Mike. I appreciate it. So you touched on two areas. First, you said that the government should provide, some tax incentives, like tax breaks for some of us diasporans that wish to relocate back to the Gambia. And you also mentioned about, you want to see some improvement in the health sector, and that would be a way to attract some of our people to come back. So I know a lot of us, tend to migrate or want to go back to Gambia for various reasons. But one of the reasons too that you just mentioned is we've gotten accustomed to a certain lifestyle where we are here, the comfort of it, and then leaving that away and then trying to go back to a situation where now, you have to migrate back with your family and the health infrastructure is subpar and all of that. So it becomes an, you find yourself in a little bit of a quandary, in trying to go back or, do I have to stay to make sure that my family is well taken care of? So I've seen people that have taken that bold step, in moving back, but some of them, took, it involves some planning into it as well as going. But right now I see that, we are just focused a little bit on us as Gambians in the diaspora. But what do you think, besides improving the health infrastructure, besides providing tax breaks, what can we do to sell ourselves? So, and this for Sheriff, how can the Gambia help in selling its image again to the global community in terms of marketing it? Because look at America, for example, right? America, they are the best, marketers in the world, right? Utilizing Hollywood, for instance. So a lot of us growing up in Gambia, you'll notice that we started watching American movies, Indian movies, and all that, but what those countries are basically doing is selling themselves. And most of the images that they showcase of their countries are the nicer parts of their countries, right? Like some of us that came here and went to Corsicana, for example, and some of us, felt disappointed, for the first time. We're like, oh, this is not what I saw when I was watching the movies. But it is done intentional to sell America and make everyone want to come in America. And that helps in their country, right? So what can we do, in Gambia, Sheriff, to help us, resell our image again to the international community so we can attract people, not only Gambians abroad, but people of color abroad to come to the Gambia and even want to invest or more so stay over there?
Well, I don't think we need to do anything, besides re-establishing our national identity. You did mention something that was very important, that the Gambia is commonly known as a smiling coast. And I remember when I was young, it was not only the smiling coast outside, but within the country too, we always had another slogan that was called Gambia, no problem. And that is because the Gambian by nature is known to be a very peaceful person. And we are very friendly people. We have beautiful coastlines, and we used to be one of the most democratic countries in Africa. That was one of the main reasons why we had the African Commission, for Human Rights, in Banjul. But over the past 22 years of Jammeh's regime, that image, got ruined. And when in 2016, Jammeh was, defeated, within that election, and Adam Barrow and the coalition government assumed power, for a very short period of time, that image came back because the whole world was amazed that a small country like Nigeria would take a dictatorship out of office by electoral process. Not a single bullet was fired, when Gambia decided to leave.
Sheriff, can you lean forward a little bit? You kind
I'm
of.
trying my best. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you well now.
Yeah. So what I was saying was, we have to reestablish our own glory. For many years, we've been known as a smiling coast, to the outside world. But besides that, internally, there was also another slogan that said Gambia, no problem. And that owes, to our peacefulness, our friendliness, as a country, and our respect, for democracy and human rights. And this was one of the main reasons why we had, the African Commission for Human Rights headquartered, in Banjul. But when the Jammeh government came and then they started disrespecting, human rights and having a tyrannical government, that destroyed that. But when Adama Barrow and the coalition government came after, the 2016 election, for once, we had that image, reestablished for a very short period of time. We have to go back, to that. It has to start with the government. The government has to reestablish the country's image as a very credible government, with the international community. Once we do that, as Michael said, and I believe we all agree to this, we establish trust. Once we establish trust, Ghana used to be a dictatorial government. We all remember that during the Rawlings, years. But then after Rawlings left, Ghana started, having its democratic footing. And then the Ghanaian diaspora and foreign, development investors, started, investing, into the country, and it led to their economic development. They put the right policies, in place. Where now, Gambia used to be the host of Ghanaians, back in the day, because of our peacefulness. But now Ghana is superseding Gambia when it comes to attracting, people, from outside. So of course, it has to begin with that. We have to have a credible government, and what we have going right now in the Gambia, I don't want to get too much into politics, but it has destroyed the credibility of that government, and it has tarnished the image of the country. But what we have to do is, number one, we have to have a in place, establish with the international community, and establish trust with the people outside. You and I and everybody else who is outside the Gambia are ambassadors of the Gambia. We sell the image of the Gambia when it comes to tourism. Because when we go to work and we go within our social circles, wherever we are abroad, when we are proud of our country, we talk about our country, people are interested. And then the first thing they do is they're going to go and look it online. Imagine if these things are not politically correct within that country. There's massive corruption in that country. There's poor economic growth in that country. There's poverty in that country. Do you think it looks appealing to them? It does not. So this is one of the things that a responsible government has to have in its mind. What they do, their actions and inactions has a bearing on the image of the country outside, and then everything else follows.
All right, so that's a good point you touched on. So Sheriff, let me add our second guest, and let me have him re-echo some of our statements, and then we'll come back to Michael. And Mr. Cisse, Maurice Cisse. Welcome to the GAM Recap Show. If you've been listening, Sheriff and Michael both touched on important issues. So Michael indicated that the government have to provide some tax breaks and also improvements in the healthcare sector. And Sheriff just touched on a very important point. He talked about we need to reestablish our image and also ensure that we curb corruption, for example. So if people in other countries, if Gambia, for example, is known as a corrupt place, if it's not easy to do business in there, if the only way you have to do business is to shake hands or use brown envelopes, so it's, other countries don't want to see this because it becomes very expensive for them and they have to be engaged in bribery and all the stuff. So Mr. Cisse, can you just delve into this and let us know what are the areas that you think, what do we need to do as a government, to ensure that, we make Gambia a safe haven for people to come and invest and also want to live?
All right. I thank you all. Saying hi to Sharif and Michael. Saying hi to the panelists and the viewers too. Having been said by Sharif and Michael, our country is gangrene in what you just analyzed exactly means corruption and all those kind of malpractices that has been going on for over decades and decades since independence, 55 good years.
So, Mr.
All
Sise,
right.
if you don't mind, I would like you to kind of go into the Mandinka language, if you don't mind, kind of.
Yeah, I'll come to that. I'll come to that. Surely.
All right. That's good.
All right. So anyway, for me personally, on my opinion is I think we having an obsolete view or obsolete opinion and ideologies about the whole issue of diaspora. I think we need to change the mindset first about the issue of diaspora. It's too old to be thinking that diaspora is just one block. Of course, we are Black people, but we need to understand, first of all, we have what we call two sets of, there are two contingents of diaspora. A diasporan mainly in the US and outside the world, around the world, in Europe or other continents. For what concern, for example, diasporans in the US, what I want to emphasize on is we need to make a very acute difference between the first contingent of people, of our own people, who were so named Jallo, Mane, Senghor, Cisse, Kinte, and so forth, who were taken from our own coast, and they were taken to America. So, and the second contingent of which happens maybe just after after 60s or 50s or 60s or 80s, means that was a willing, that was a voluntary migration. So we need to differentiate these two categories of the actual reason of the actual diasporans we have in the U.S. Nonetheless, those that are in U.S. need to understand and also change the mindset that it's only Black people who are diasporans in the U.S. That mindset has to change. It's not only Black people who are diasporans in the U.S. We have the white people, Latinos, be it a Latino or white people, are diasporan too. We need to get that. Those people are diasporan. You ask them, they will tell you, I'm from Ireland. My forefathers came from Ireland. You ask them, they will tell you, my forefathers came from England. You ask them, they will tell you, my forefathers came from Germany. You ask them, they will tell you, my forefathers came from Holland. You look at Manhattan, the construction, the architecture of Manhattan. That clearly indicates, it correlates when you visit Holland, you understood some, the influence of the Dutch. So we need to understand, first of all, to understand this issue of the diaspora, the way we as Africans, the way we are dealing and treating this issue, is it the right way? We need to ask ourselves, because we are not the only diasporans in America, for example. All right, because you have white people, they're diasporans. They came there when Columbus came in America in 1492. He came from somewhere. Then they orchestrated slavery and all those kind of things for their just to feed Europe. Feeding Europe was the source, was the cause of those heinous act they did to enslave people. And when they came to us, they don't take the poor, the weak, they take the best out of us. And that taking best out of us led to, after the slavery and led to what America has, the mechanism that America has put in place, means the phenomenon that we can qualify as brain drain. The brain drain system that has been created by America.
Mr. Cisse, I'm not to cut you, but yeah. I get the historical context of how, you know, slavery or pre-slavery, you know, migration led to the creation of a diaspora constituency for each race. Maybe for the Europeans, you know, transversing and going to South Africa or Americas, and also Africans unwillingly being traded, you know, to the other new worlds. So I get that. But now that we are here today, okay, we understand Gambia, for example. Our diaspora constitutes of two constituencies. You know, we have Gambians in the diaspora, and we also have African Americans, or even the biggest constituency of Black people in the world is in Brazil. Okay, so all of these are opportunities for us as a country to lure people to come and to the Gambia. They do not have to physically repatriate. Like I said, for example, you can be in France.
I understood where you're going, because what I want to emphasize is you must deal accordingly with this subject from the root cause, to make a separation, to understand that we have two types of diasporans. That's what I'm emphasizing on here. That means there are those that were taken for slavery, and those that traveled, for example, to US which was caused by much more the brain drain syndrome, actually. So now, in order to try to put in what we call also brain gain, you know, brain gain. So to do a brain gain, we must treat this subject, you know, meticulously in a very, very, very serious manner. I think the old obsolete way should be changed.
Can I jump in, Mr. Cisse?
You were talking about the root. Excuse me, just a second. The Root Homecoming Festival that you were talking about, I understood. It's a segment of its own. You understand? So now, because you have to say that, okay, diasporan has to return to Gambia, not all will come. And in fact, there are multiple ways of, you know, attracting diasporans. It doesn't mean the physical presence of an individual matters most. So you can have a permanent and a definitive returnees. You can have those that will like partially, or they will be part-time. In fact, part-time returnees. And then you will have what we call virtual returnees. You understand? So those virtual returnees, in fact, are very, very important. Like recently, when this COVID-19 incident started, all right, you see Gambians all over are collaborating, uniting together, making a platform to talk to our government, you know, because of their skills, their knowledge, and what they acquire, and their field of studies that they specialized in. So that's a virtual. Those can be termed as a virtual concept of, you know, diasporan participation to work where their country of origin. So, but for example, what I want to emphasize much more, our country, we need to understand that diaspora is an oxygen. When a country understood that diaspora is an oxygen, then we need to break up the enigma. We decorticate the enigma, decipher it correctly. That's what I was trying to explain to you. We must separate the type of diasporan we have. We should not put them all in the same egg and the same basket. The Root Homecoming Festival that you are talking about, it was a political gimmicks. Okay, those are political shenanigans. You know, it won't work. It won't get those people back. Okay,
okay. So go ahead.
So you said something about. So I believe our main focus should be getting people, Gambians. We don't have to worry about all those people they send through ships in Gambia, but getting Gambians, people like you and me, to go back to Gambia and stay there and work.
Yeah, brother, so I don't obstruct. In this case, as Black people, we need to make sure that we call.
anytime we go to Gambia, like Gambians in Gambia, they're like smart, they know everything. But because we're so exposed to so many things out in the West, there are so many things in the Gambia. If you tell them, they're like, "What? Is that possible? Can we do that?" So all those virtual diasporans you're talking about, can you imagine all of them going back to Gambia, staying in Gambia, working in all different sectors of the government, and implementing those ideas inside the government? So I think that's the most important thing Gambians should focus on. The Root Homecoming Festival, those things are all part of kind of tourism. They'll come, spend a week or two, and then they go back home, which is great. But it's going to be much more better if we get more Gambians going back home to stay and live in Gambia and use all the experience they've learned in the West, business, IT, health, whatever, accountancy, whatever experience they've learned, things they've learned are new that Gambians are not aware yet. Because something you don't know, you don't know. You can do nothing about it. So that's the problem in Gambia, because a lot of people are hardworking, but because they had received all this education, some of us got in the West, and some of the experience, some of the things you've seen, they can't implement those ideas in Gambia. So the virtual diasporans, we need them more in Gambia than wherever they are. And the Roots Homecoming Festival Gambians or African Americans, we still welcome them because they'll still come in to bring us the euros.
All right. So
I
will just put in this. In India, they're on the process. They're on the process of doing that. So that way, China, they are doing that. Okay. Listen, you know how to call it. What we need to understand. That's why I came to explain that we need to separate the type of diasporans we have and how to deal with them. We need to institutionalize this. Okay, in a way whereby we will know that these are home dissidents, you know, and these ones like our expatriates. We need to understand how to treat those people, and those that has been of descendant of, you know, we all know. We need to know how to attract those people through tourism. But also, that's why there are even real estate companies in the Gambia that are trying during their course of visit and whatever, trying to, you know, open those kind of markets so that to show them that life is possible here. But coming back, the issue of diaspora for our government, actually, more seriously, to be candid, we need to understand that the issue of the diaspora will and shall never be resolved until and unless our government put in a mechanism that will help to fix certain basic fundamental ethos for human survival and living. Certain just basic means energy.
But the government of Gambia alone, is not capable of doing that. We know that they can't. They can try. They should try to put some things in place. But I don't want us to put all our focus on trying to get every Gambian, every African American, every European to come back to Gambia. We can focus on one set of diasporans to come back to Gambia and work in Gambia and make the Gambia better. And the other ones, the tourism department can work on the homecoming festival, all the other our descendants who are slaves to come back to Gambia to visit. Those people are not staying in the Gambia. They just come in to visit, spend a few dollars, and then they go back home. But if we focus on getting you, Mr. Cisse, Mr. Cora, and Ips going back to Gambia and just working in the government, Sheriff have so much experience over here. He can just Sheriff in one department can educate someone.
I think any Pan-African mind listening to you, any Pan-African mind listening to you would probably disassociate such views, because the thing is, it would be termed as a form of a positive segregation. And black people are black people. All right. These people has been fighting over ages to be part of all. And we, this is in fact, the syndrome is they are seeing us rejecting them. And they are rejected at on the other side. We can treat this subject. For me, we can treat this subject by separating them. In fact, we on the same line. Don't worry, we on the same line.
We just need to do Sheriff to come in. He's been listening and he's been keen to jump in.
Well, Mr. Cisse raised a very important point.
Yes, go ahead.
And I believe Mr. Cisse and Mike are both touching on the same issue. Okay, one is more clear than the other. But Mr. Cisse raised a very important issue. There are two segments of the diaspora. You have to look at the Gambian-born that are outside. And then you have to look at people of African ancestry that are outside, be it within the United States, African American or Afro-Caribbean, whatsoever. He did raise a very important point, and we have to take note of that. The strategy that the government have to put in place in attracting these two groups, has to be different. Okay. Number one, I'm not sure how you guys are following social media activities, in the Gambia, but I've been following it.
Can you lean forward a little bit, Sheriff?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. You can hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I have my computer on my lap, so that's why it's a laptop. So
Okay.
yeah, that's why it's like a little bit far away from me. But what I was saying is, I've been following a few people in the Gambia that are not born Gambians, but these are people that have returned from abroad. One is Black Sid, a lady named Juliet, who has a show, and it is a phenomenal show. She is promoting the Gambia and encouraging people from Britain and other parts of the Caribbean and across the world to come to Gambia. I mean, what that lady is doing is just amazing. And there's another group of people called the Black. I think it's called the Black Acres of the Gambia.
Acres of the Gambia, yeah.
Amazing work. Okay, and that's this other lady. I think her name is it Art?
Art Kennedy, something like that. Yeah.
Who's I mean, she's also doing amazing stuff in that place. And recently, I was watching Black Acres of the Gambia, and they have this African American guy who's lived in Dar es Salaam for many years, and he has found a way to make vinegar out of cashew, to make ice cream out of our local products. Even before all these people, we've seen Hakeem, the Sons of Light.
Yeah.
Has been a fundamental pillar in promoting music in the Gambia. These are talents, that we can attract as a country from abroad. They have the knowledge, they have the skill sets, and they are not born citizens of the Gambia, but they are the African diaspora that the government need to attract. But when they come in the Gambia, what do you do for them? When I see Black Sid crying online with her husband to gain Gambian citizenship, it burns my heart.
Yeah,
it burns my heart. What do we do to encourage these people to come to the Gambia? What do we do to protect their intellectual properties? These are the things that we have to ask ourselves. And I think that's the point that Maurice is trying to raise.
Yes.
For us, we are born Gambians. It is our home. We have all the political rights. We have all the legal provisions that protects us. What the government does to attract us is completely different from what it has to do to attract the other people.
Exactly.
Yes.
And this is what he's trying to raise. But what Mike said, Mike, socialist, will have to disagree with you, on one thing, which is you don't have to be physically present in the Gambia to make a difference. You don't.
Yeah.
And what this man is make a reference to is that circular migration. Not everybody can go home. We have lots of constraints. And you did mention one thing, that the government can't do everything, which is very true.
Yeah.
But there are certain things the government has to step in. You did mention about economic incentives. Of course, there are some countries that are making a difference in attracting their diasporans by creating economic free zones where these are particular shopping areas tax-free. You set up a company, this is one geographic location. Once you stay here, you don't pay no taxes, or you pay minimal taxes for a certain number of years based on certain conditions. And it has succeeded in a lot of countries. India has it, Panama has it, other places has it. This is something that Gambia has to explore, because number one, if you're going to set up a business, you need land, and you need a home, and these are all things that make it hard for other people to go back home. You don't have a house, you don't have a land to set up your business. Land is too expensive now in the Gambia. What kind of things can the government do? We have in housing estates, but what about some sort of like an industrial complex that they can build that will be specifically for businesses that are coming abroad? Number one, owned by Gambian diasporans, and other people of African ancestry who want to come and establish businesses in the Gambia. But with this pandemic now, you and I are in the United States talking, and you have Mr. Cisse who is all the way in Europe. We are exchanging ideas. We are not physically present in one space, and that just shows us we can contribute ideas effectively with the government. You are in the healthcare sector. You're an administrator. You're an executive. You're young, brilliant. You have a lot of things you can share with the people in the Gambia. If the Gambia has 20 people of your kind, who can be having this kind of session with the people at the RVTH to have a symposium or some sort of a knowledge transfer? This is what we are doing in the United States, to help with COVID. This is what we are doing in the United States, to control diabetes. How can you transfer that knowledge? There's a gap. So I think you guys are all talking about the same thing. Of course, the government cannot do it alone. The private sector has to be involved, but it starts with the government.
Yeah.
And the reason why I said, this will be my last point, Ibrahim. Let me finish this because I started it. It's one of the strategies I believe that the government can use, which they lack. And it goes back to what Mr. Cisse knew. Now, we have WhatsApp everywhere. But, if you listen to all these WhatsApp groups and you listen to social media, it is only people talking. I've not heard anything, like a press release, in the form of an audio from the government. Mm-hmm. It's not there.
No.
Okay, so this is the thing. Number one, the government, the Gambia has to identify its citizens, abroad. We are scattered all over, but these embassies don't even have a tab on us. Unless you write to them and tell them your passport is expired, they don't even know half the time that you are in the country. They have to have a database because the Gambian diaspora outside is a national asset. It is an asset, and unless you can put your asset in some sort of a database, you would not know what you have. So number one, there has to be a strategy to identify Gambians that are abroad, what kind of skill sets they have, and what their interests are. And you have to have a communication platform. You have to identify what is the digital behavior of the Gambians, what social media platforms they use. Is it Facebook? Is it WhatsApp? And then you leverage those platforms to communicate with them.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, we have all these Gambian associations in the US. We have all of them in Europe, but they are all standalone. We do not have that sustained engagement with the government, and that creates a lot of distrust because when we have questions, we can't ask the government. We only base it on assumption because our government doesn't talk to us. How does the government, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, creates a channel for Gambians who are interested in certain businesses or other, African people in the diaspora who wants to set up businesses, to have an engagement with, the Chamber of Commerce or, with the Department of Land to register your land. It's a nightmare to even register your property, to lease your property in the Gambia. It's a nightmare. You don't even know how much you have to pay.
Even setting up a business.
So how are you going to attract us to come back if you cannot even lease our land?
Yeah.
Or you buy a property and it's sold to 3 other different people?
Yeah.
So these are the issues, that has to be solved, within the country. I bet it's not hard to do once there's a political will. We'll do it. Hey, when the American embassy decided that you can never submit your submission like that, you have to go to Standard Chartered Bank and pay a fee and apply online. Everybody did it. Even those who are not educated find a way to do it because there's a need for it. It has to start from somewhere. It might be inconvenient, but if it's a necessity, people will stick to it. And this is what the government has to do to attract people from outside. And I did mention these people, Hakim and Black Acres of the Gambia, and a lot of other people that are there that we don't even know about. Some of the restaurants that we have in the Gambia, that are owned by these Afro-Caribbeans, from the UK. Some of them are professional. But we cannot identify them. We cannot create, it said, that linkage between those people who are out there who want to make a difference, with agencies or within the government in the country, and that is where it has to start. But Mike, I'm better say all that.
Okay.
But I got a question for Sheriff. Some of these things you mentioned, what do you think is the problem? Why are we so slow to achieving them? We've known these things forever. Jammeh era, Barrow era, but still, it's like what are they waiting for? What are we waiting for to make those things happen? What do you think is causing the problem?
I ask myself, the same question all the time. Is it the lack of political will? I know there's some resource, constraints, probably. Within the Jammeh era, you would know that Jammeh, should not waste his time because, nobody's going to, listen to him anyway. His government, does not have that credibility. You come to talk to us, we'll probably boo you, because, you represent in a government, that, don't have, that good relationship with people. That was total disengagement. When Adama Barrow came at the beginning, he could have sustained, the momentum that he has built with the Gambian diaspora. Because, you have all these groups, that popped up, from like cities, putting up resources together to support, that democratic ambition that we had. He squandered it. And this is what we have to, eradicate in the country. The leadership matters a lot. The leadership matters a lot. We need a credible, we need a motivational and aspirational leadership in the country. When we don't have that, we have leaders that are greedy, that are only out there to fulfill their political will and ambition. It will not work. Because, power is all about influence. It is all about influence. And if you do not have that aspirational leadership and selfless leadership, what it does is, you repel people. And this is what has happened. I know there are some genuine people in the Gambia, that are willing to do good at all levels. But as we said, fish, starts right from the top. And when you don't have a credible leadership, it disengages, people inside and outside the country. And I think that's where we are right now. They squandered that opportunity. The trust is gone. Can they reestablish it? I doubt it. I doubt it because, Gambians outside had a whole lot of international influence to make sure democracy is restored in the Gambia. When we went out and, campaigned at the EU to make sure that, democracy returns in the Gambia, when people protested in New York and other places, we meant change. But we do not have the desired change. And people are upset. People are dissatisfied. So when you come to talk to people, the first thing they will ask you is what has happened. So they have to start somewhere. But that's why they're not doing it is a good question.
So let's shift gears here a little bit. So we talked about the reasons why, like how we could attract people to come back to the Gambia. We talked about the tax incentive approach. Like Sheriff mentioned, giving tax breaks. When people establish businesses in certain geographic areas. Also, the healthcare improvement need, reestablishing our national image and trying to find ways to limit corruption. I'm not saying to eradicate it, but to limit it as much as to be able to gain people's confidence. So now let's shift a little bit to talk about if all these things happen to be established, for example, okay, and we are in a good space. So where do you think, in the short term as well as in the long term, what are the areas of focus that we would want the diaspora to be on, the areas that we would want them to focus on in terms of helping out, in terms of investing, or in terms of helping to develop certain areas? I know, Mike, your passion is healthcare, but when all of these bureaucracies are half eliminated and we have some sort of a conducive environment, where can we have people focus on as ground zero to ensure that we start from there and to start seeing an impact in the short and long term? Mike, you can come in, and then Mo come in.
Like you guessed, health is my always priority. Our life expectancy rate in Gambia is terrible. It's poor because, like, most of us, our parents they've already gone already, and in their early 50s, in their 60s, not because of anything, but because of they can receive proper healthcare in Gambia, and we have great doctors, great nurses, and great healthcare experts in there, but they don't have the resources or the equipment, or some of them don't have the knowledge to take care of these health problems. And if we don't have a healthy population, it's gonna be terrible for the Gambia, because we can always catch up on other aspects of the economy. So my priority is always health, making our healthcare system so good that people wouldn't be worried about getting sick every day. For instance, malaria has been in Gambia forever. but it's something that we still struggle with until today. Like we always struggle with malaria. Other health conditions, we some of them don't even know. Apart from the healthcare in the hospitals and the healthcare system, something I think we can actually improve in Gambia is educating the general population about some basic problems: high blood pressures, diabetics, heart attacks. I've seen so many people pass away, and they ask them what happened. Oh, the fact they're in the loud, things like that. Or the fact that we are looking for a taxi to get him back to hospital. But there's some basic things we can do from at home before the taxi gets there, before the ambulance drives from Brikama to Buffet to get to pick you up to take you to the hospital. There's some basic things we can do to help you prolong your life. But because the average Gambian doesn't know those basic things, those are the things affecting our healthcare system. But if something else that is troubling Gambia, it's unemployment. So many youths they're unemployed, and they're unemployed, and they're having trouble getting jobs. I know the backway syndrome. People going to backway. Some of them is a choice, but some of them because they are pushed to the wall, and they can get jobs to take care of their families, and they have no other choice but to take the risky trip to go through the desert, through the sea, and to get to Europe. And most of them die. But if we create create work and create jobs opportunities, and get those companies or those Gambians who want to invest in Gambia, give them tax breaks, provide all these opportunities for young Gambians who finish high school or junior school or whatever level, that will also help us improve our systems in Gambia. I think if we get the health system great, and we create more jobs for the youths and for the women, those things will kind of help develop Gambia better and faster. And other systems, I can think of other departments yet, but if we get those two systems in place, it will trickle down to other departments, and our Gambian population will be better. So I think that's our biggest problem right now.
So Mike, is this something that you could quickly summarize in Wolof, so that for the benefit of Wolof listeners out there?
So lumala wax moy Gambia sun problem right now moy sun lopitani, like am nañ docteur ba, am nañ nurse ba, but sun nguur bi nekk ñu di dimbalé bari pour defal sun wërgu yaram. Sun papa yi sun yaay ñu bari ñu ngi dé ci duñu maget sax ñu dé. Nga toké rek ñu ki dé na lu ko jot xamuñ lu ko jot. Wala lu ko jot deretam ba nekkon hide. Like simple things like that. Loolu yëpp am nañ fajam, am nañ ñu ko mëna toppatoyé, am nañ ñu ko mëna fajé. Waaye sun nguur bi nekk ñu liggéey lu bari depuis time Jawara, time Yaya Jammeh ak time Barrow. Sun lopitaan bi Banjul nu mel noonu la mel ba léegi. Like oxygen sax problème la. Like man mu nekk Gambia sax sometimes nga gis nit ñi ngi ut oxygen. Loo xam ne for yomba am sax it's a big problem. Soo ko amutee doo mën a toppatoo nit. Waaye suñ defaree sun healthcare sector bi bem tane. Warut a mel ni comme bu Europe, warut a mel ni comme bu America, amuñ xaalis boo noonu. Waaye suñ ko mënee defal ba nga xam ne mën na ñëw faj nit yi si feebar yi ndaw yi, feebar yi malaria, feebar yi diabetes, feebar yi heart attack, feebar yi ndaw yi noonu yëpp loolu na tax ñi di mën a gudda fan. Ñi di suñ guddee fan dañoo mën a liggéey moo si dëkk bi, mën a indi xaalis si dëkk bi. Suñ mënee defar loolu noonu ba pare mën a invite investors biir dëkk bi pour ñu mën a liggéey dëkk bi. Yes, Olivier. Pour mën a liggéey dëkk bi suñ youth su bëri ñu ngi ni fii di dem backway di dem dee si yoon bi not kenn bëgg a dee si yoon bi kenn bëgg a dox ay thousands of kilometers dem si Sahara desert bi dem si dëkk naar bi mais ñu kidnap la def la jàmm foofu noonu wala dem si géej boo xam ne half of the people yëpp ñu ngi dee foofu noonu kenn bëgg a def loolu noonu booy dañ ses amuñ liggéey the only thing lu ngay mën a def mooy pour dem yooni backway pour dem mën a dimbale seen waajur so government bi dafa war a góorgóorlu trop pour mën a indi liggéey si biir dëkk bi mën a dimbale youth si pour ñoom na am liggéey parce que mën a dimbale seen healthcare sector bi tam pour mën a dimbale ñëpp suñ defee loolu moom every other department comme maybe Chérif can think of some other departments or Mr. Cissé loolu noonu yëpp nañ mën a liggéey su amutee wér-gu-yaram su amutee rek there's nothing else to work for that country like dëkk bi du dara.
Mike wax nga dëgg so wax nga si yëfi healthcare system bi also wax nga ne comme gaañi war nañoo invest si business su ko defee ndaw yi nekk si dëkk bi ñoom tamit ñu mun a find ways pour mun a am liggéey so investment si bépp fànn boo ko mën a def rek dina tax ne di liggéey so for example am nañ diasporas yoo xam ne for example ñu ngi dëkk Texas fii ñu ngi am benn waay fii nii Fodé Singate, you know, he opened up like a bakery or two in Gambia, and some of the youth dama ko dee gis Facebook mu ngi ko share mu ngi wane ndaw yi ñu ngi liggéey ñu ngi daan doole. So, and you know, countless other diasporans yu nekk America fii ñu ngi open companies foofu noonu Gambia te ndaw yaa ngi liggéey. So ndaw yoo noonu su nekku doon those business opportunities ñu nekk diaspora bu indi Gambia da ngaa gis ne ndaw yoo noonu most of them duñ am chance boobu noonu sax pour mun a liggéey. Lu ñoo nekk di def mooy you know nekk si campagne di naan ataaya xam nga ba pare loolu can lead into a lot of stuff, you know, stunted growth in terms of, you know what I'm saying, personal growth and development. So, Mr. Cisse, Madam Sister, Mr. Cisse. Mr. Cisse, yo, what do you think, what areas like do you think, you know, these diasporans that want to help in Gambia, invest in Gambia, what areas do they need to invest in? Can you elaborate on that in the Mandinka language for the benefit of our Mandinka viewers as well?
Okay. Quickly, I just want to make, if you can just allow me to elaborate on an issue.
Yeah, we can, but we kind of running out of time. We don't have we have a lot more to cover. So that's why if we go back.
Right. I just wanted to say, because I think it's a very important point to pinpoint or highlight that our government really need to understand that the diaspora, Gambia is a very small country. Okay, in land size, I don't know, 10,000 something kilometers. Gambia is very small. Okay, nowadays we in a modern global world, you know, we need to Gambia doya batale is a very small territory in Senegal, 10,000 square kilometers, something like that. It's a very small country, but it can be a very big country. As you know, banku baka tomote dunia kono Gambia. Atutan tolle bulam benna banko sambala no nyameng. So abe nyameng ni Senegal jibe ye banku dol jibe Jamaica, they are doing terribly well to make sure that, and they are of standard of they are of the same standard with Gambia in terms of develop as on the developed nations. Jamaica is doing the same thing. Ila, like, you know, how to call it? They pay all leverages. For example, they will subsidize you to make sure that to attract you, even though they have poor salaries or whatever. But near Jibe, Bankola Doya, our country, the size of our country, how it is in land size is so small. But Gambia can be a big country like the UK. Why Great Britain? The name Great Britain. They colonized India, they colonized us in Africa. How many countries in Africa? United States. They were the former colony of United States. They colonized United States. So near Jibe, Banko land size is not important. The population size, Gambia si waranwa si keno Banko Bati, it can be a big country in this modern world. Big country, I mean. The bigness of the size of a country or the land size of a country doesn't matter. What matters is the population now. Yet diaspora sort of, you have diaspora. It's a very, very lucrative incentives. You know, it's a long Fengol nyefen na fulo lebebulu sa fengol lebebulu hadama human resource lebebulu asiata so hadama dingol sia ni la kore siata e do ko do bije no e ke kutala wala nyama so na masakunda le nyanna sila ya understand ko Manyana Gambia, Dandila Gambia, or territory within the confines of surrounded by Senegal. No. Population-wise, that's what counts now. That's what can make Gambia bigger than Senegal. That's what can give a big voice to Gambia in the world. So considering the diaspora is primordial to consider diaspora. To reconsider our whole technique, our whole framework look about that. We're having an obsolete system. An obsolete concept about the diaspora. That has to change. That has to change. And the diaspora too, for them, they need to have an altruism in them. So that altruism, like India is doing, actually. They're screening people. They're using a technique of Dr. Homo's way of screening their people to make sure that those that have skills, when they come, they created something that will help them to know exactly what you want to do. So what I want to emphasize much more here is our people need to understand Gambia can be a very big country, but it's left to us. A giant step has been taken, but that giant step, at the end of the day, you come to realize that that giant step is just a utopian step. A utopian process means considering the diaspora as the 8th region of the Gambia. That is one of the best fundamental pillars that government should have followed and lay, not for political interest. Diaspora issues should not be politicized, should not be an interest, or should not be decided in the name of only one individual. No, this should have, it has to be. All these guys, what they are saying is our diaspora issues should be institutionalized to make sure that we understand that this is very lucrative for us. Let me tell you, the most precious natural resource ever God has created, ever on earth, ever, is the human brain. The human brain is the most precious natural resources we can have ever in our life, ever. Not diamonds. All those games is our brain, that policies that games to make it a precious stone.
Yeah.
The brain that refine a crude oil, the brain that sends satellites, whatever natural resources ever on earth is the human brain. So if you collectively gather your what we call, that's why this phenomenon of brain draining has to be has to be countered in a very, very harmonious way. We harness our the skills to use it in a best way.
Mr. Cesar, let's try to stick to this point here. So what would you say in Mandinka, if you may? So what kind of areas, I get the utopic approach that you are trying to discern here, but where do you think when Sheriff or Michael or you and I decide to go back to Gambia, or maybe not go physically, but invest there, what are the major areas of concern, areas that the here and now that we need to emphasize and focus on in terms of, putting our dollars into, if you could say, yeah.
So diaspora, niajibe, altol membe diaspora, niajibe, like, it's an individual adventure. More killing adventure long. So individual adventure, it is sila government government is sila. That's why India this how to call it the theory of dichotomy is very important. A theory of dichotomy to understand the minds of those people coming, their intent. Because government ta decide la kafoko ni bota ni nata na even like if you are in the finance world and they will take you to do, like, I don't know, surgery or become a doctor at the RVTH. No, I think diaspora momo yalanko, like, knowledge may be able to be it whatever academic qualification or skills need at Gambia. You need to specialize in your own area or whatever. But to be candid, like Serif also has emphasized earlier on, for me, I think it's not that much 100% important to be physically present in the Gambia. We in a global world. Now. The world has become, look at it. We are here talking about issues, and others are all over the world, 4 corners of the world, can listen to us and can hear us and can know exactly what we want to say. ECOWAS held, a meeting, a virtual meeting, with modern technology, which is going on. Okay, Akam Kenyaming, like in South Africa did it, is doing it. India is doing it. Jamaica, even Taiwan, the same thing. Okay. Like naltol nata na ila fita mansa kunda la fita be mansa kunda nyanna fero mel landila kaje ko naltol nata momo salary da mamu ka tinna diaspora ko e si diaspora foko atina la Gambia because salary le doyata hani there must be few basic things. That's why in the government nyanna in lala woleto you settle for good and for always way but the energy means energy is an assurance for someone to have at least a comfortable life vis-a-vis of modern comfort means Kando is too hot there. Yemo na bondi na Texas ikaina si Gambia. IG doko la says work on kurango fata. Jambe kandiring. Alafta connect la internet auto ka jibe mu be kering ana attaque la no. Kuran tije. Alafita kudol kela abe kuran. Now, dunia is well connected to energy. Energy is the basic key life. The oxygen. Energy is the oxygen of any economy around the world. If you stabilize energy, everything works perfectly. Many right now, so we need to understand the importance of energy. We fix our energy sector. Silol mang diaspora called balinala. Salary me balinala. All energy fix, and then democracy. Democracy is a fundamental pillar for diaspora. So our government need to understand that we need to fix our energy sector so that at least, because this is what can hold them. They can be on their phone. You don't have to work on air conditioner. I comfort. It's energy creates a lot of comfort. So new settled that democracy has to be there. A conducive environment means na lual. Nyana wol bunyala mol fanan na nyantol nye dila. Mol menka diamu jang ika call for na bankoma wala mobe the ruling class to ye kuoku foima amanke ko tawle ba fokan pour bala firingole kam hani iba fokan ne because munem ntol bi jan damento be dunia kilingole kono fonyo kilingole bijang banku kilingole bijang ninata Gambia ngajele ko nyulma mol dam fenna namanke kodoti because bank ni nata femman faling we need to take those mentalities ni bonding ngol kono nga understand ko ntolbe nde damento jang amanke ko fenjamale nyul mol muta pour kana hani amanke wotide
okay
ali wol keje ñun ibinale inati nyal nin democracy lotal democracy has to be there yanya make so because yo jele inya kuninta ibente falale bari como ibente believe in la kudol la what dictatorial tendencies it will never work.
Okay, Mr. Cisse, ngela kumo moya ila kumo nyinyata bake so ko democracy nying aning fango energy bunda nying wol nyentel dalale so that multinano invest no. So ila kumo nyinyata bake. Thank you so much. So let me shift to Sheriff and then come back to Michael, then we shift the conversation. So Sheriff nake waite amira dung ite na Gambian call in what are the areas mo nyenta focus la munto isaje development or second or by the diasporans.
Yeah, Mr. Cisse abaraka baga, Mr. Cisse jama ba fol da bari. Komi nga fono nyamen ro. I'll probably take a different approach. Number one, what we need to have some sort of a policy formulation on the side of the government to have a very robust diaspora engagement policy. In the sense that, like Mr. Cisse Afanyami, you have Gambians, Mulialan Kava abroad in Seattle, and the brain,
Sheriff, can you lean forward again?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
All right, okay. So what I was alluding to what Mr. Cisse said. We need a very robust, policy formulation with regards to diaspora engagement on the side of the government, beginning with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that the office, the diaspora desk needs to be strengthened, like capacity, Muyalanka for, the government of the Gambia through its embassies and other affiliates abroad would be able to create some sort of a database to identify Gambians who live in those countries, to identify the skill sets that they have, to identify what interests they have, with regards to investing in the country, returning into the country, and the constraints that's not allowing them to go back, to the Gambia, and to also understand what communication platforms that the government can use to have some sort of an effective communication platform for the government to sell its agenda to the citizens of the Gambia abroad and other people of African ancestry who have an interest, in either returning to the Gambia or contributing one way or another towards, the national development. And to also have their concerns, you need to have an effective communication platform. And we need to also have an engagement. The government has to have like a very, very effective, engagement strategy with the diaspora. Meaning for, the embassies, have to find a way after they identify these people.
Lean forward again, Sheriff.
Because there's something wrong with my mic here. What I'm saying is, to have a kind of cyclical communication between,
it's still not clear.
Okay, is it better now? Can you hear me?
Much better.
Okay, yeah. What I was saying was, there has to also be a sustained engagement strategy between the government and the people in the diaspora. For instance, you're talking about the Gambian Texas Association, or you're talking about Ajira, in Atlanta, or other big cities where you have a large concentration of, Gambians. That could be a very good medium for the government to tap into, to identify who are in those countries, in those societies or communities, and what their interests are, what their concerns are, what the constraints are, for them to invest in the Gambia or to go back in the Gambia, or if they want to exchange ideas. I'll give a perfect example. We have Joy here, the Jurarium Organization for Youth Empowerment. Mike alone raised, almost $1,000, for them within a matter of a month. And they're doing, a lot of development in the Gambia when it comes to, education. Okay, you might have, a lot of other similar organizations out there that want to make, contribution, in national development, in the country, but they might not have the means and the methods of, engaging with similar, agencies, on the ground. So when you have this, engagement platform where you can create a linkage between the people outside and the people in the country, I think, that way the government can how do you call it again, create an environment where, it would go beyond the government itself. So, for instance, it'll have to land register in the Gambia. You understand? You want to register your land in the Gambia. You want to renew your passport. You want to do a lot of other things. You want to invest. Now you cannot do that, Ibrahim. None of us can do that, but we need a one-stop shop. We need a one-stop shop where either through an embassy or through, the creation of like an online platform. If you go onto that online platform, you can probably find all the information that you need regarding investing in the Gambia, regarding, the presence of, agencies, in the Gambia, regarding, companies, that are doing trade in the Gambia. You might have, a Gambian businessmen, in the United States who want to link up, with other businesses, in the Gambia to facilitate import and export. But right now you can't do that. Mike and I were talking, a few years ago about, facilitating the export of, receipt papers, to the Gambia. But him and I cannot even find out what the price of the receipt is in the country. We had to rely on second-hand information. Whether it was accurate or not, we do not know. But as I'm saying, we need to have, a robust, platform, that would allow the government to identify its citizens outside, identify the skill sets people have, identify their interests, identify their constraints when it comes to returning back or participating, within national development. And secondly, there has to be an effective, communication strategy and a sustained engagement strategy with people outside. And that engagement has to be based on trust. There has to be a mutual trust, between the citizens and the government, because you cannot inspire people when you have a questionable practice of running a government. And it's sad to say, like the Jammeh days, this current coalition government has left a large confidence deficit in its diaspora population, and I don't think it can be repaired. This is not a political platform, and I don't want to use I don't want to use a platform to get into that, but attention needs to be paid in certain areas, like Mr. Cisse said. So, rather than that, a little bit more. Every December, you have some sort of a diaspora platform. I think that is launched, by TAF, and I don't think it happened last year. If it did, then I didn't follow it, but I followed, the previous ones, and it was very, very, very encouraging to see that. But we have to go beyond ideas. We have to go beyond talk shows. We have to participate. If we had a platform where, if you go to Gambia for semester, you're a nurse, like Mike is. You want to go to RVTH and, at least volunteer a few of your hours, 10 hours, 20 hours, out of your 2 weeks stay in the Gambia. How do you do that? How do you create a platform that inform people? This is what you can do if you want to volunteer, in a sector, in the Gambia. I'm a nurse, I'm going to Gambia for 2 weeks, but I want to give back to my country. I want to volunteer, 10 hours of my stay out there. This is how you do it. You contact this person at the Ministry of, Health. This, person at the Ministry of Health will put you, through, with somebody at the Ministry of Health. Have focal points. I'm in agriculture. I want to go to a local farm to help the vegetable farmers in Bakau. I want to help the vegetable farmers, in Sukuri. How do I do that? How do I go over there? How do I show them, how to, maintain their crops? How to, prolong the shelf life of their vegetables? Education. I want to go to the Gambia College. I want to go to a local school to help the teachers. I'm a teacher in the US. I'm a teacher in the UK. I want to transfer knowledge. How do I do that? So this is what is lacking. So I cannot pinpoint a specific area. It is because it's multidimensional. But I think for a beginning, we need to have a robust, diaspora engagement policy. And of course, like Mike said before, the government cannot handle all of it. But I think we have to start somewhere. And the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, needs to have, some strengthening of capacity when it comes, to the diaspora desk.
All right, interesting conversation, guys. Sheriff, I like those points about the one that particularly captured my attention is the creation of a hub system where a one-stop shop where, information can be easily accessible. I think information is a big deterrent for us in Gambia in terms of even people trying to get information. I'll give you a good example. If you're wanting to establish a business in Gambia, for example, so in America here, if you want to set up an LLC, you go to the state that you live in, you go to the Secretary of State's page and sign up online. Next thing in the email, you get your all of your information, everything you need to sign up, and you're good to go. In Gambia today, if you want to set up an LLC, first and foremost, sometimes you don't even know who to talk to. And they will tell you that, you to come up with articles of organization, articles of this and that, association, you have to pay a lawyer X, Y, and Z such amount of money in order to about $25,000, and then you have these other miscellaneous fees. It's fees upon fees. And even for those things that, they're saying that the lawyers have to prepare those forms for you, but that's something that you could do for you. But there is this implied accepted notion that, lawyers have to do that for you, and your business will not be registered if a lawyer doesn't do it. So information like that, if it's easily accessible for people to know that, okay, I can save myself $25,000 and do this on my own without having to go through a lawyer, cut down all those bureaucracies. And I think that's important. So, shifting gears again. So interesting point. So Mike, I'll start with you. So we've talked about how we can attract diasporans to come back. We talked about the areas of focus. So what I want us to talk about is that we've seen people who packed up their bags and say, okay, I'm going home. Okay, not unlike Gambians, but we've seen non-Gambians, of African descent that packed up their bags from the United States or other European countries and say, "I'm going back to Gambia." But all of these people have, lots of experiences, in adjusting. Okay. So because once you migrate, you also migrate with your culture. Okay. So sometimes, you tend to look at your host country, with your other country's lenses, right? So if you come from Gambia, you're looking at if you come from America, you're looking at Gambia with American lenses. So things are not going to match. The healthcare system is not good. The road infrastructure is bad. So a lot of them, and sometimes, it's sad to say, but also you tend to deal with people at an individual level. They have a lot of bad experiences when people try to be too deceitful to them. Okay, and lately we've seen this lady
Yeah.
who is from Alabama. Her name is Carty, and she made a video about Gambia, and maybe the language that she chose, might be distasteful, but nonetheless, some of the message that she said, her delivery wasn't too great, but the message in its entirety, is accurate, considering how people not knowing, just recognizing that you're not from there, they tend to deceive you and trying to overcharge you for certain things, and and other stuff. So high expectation of how Gambia should be and where Gambia is now are totally different. But I just wanted to come in and say, and even some of our own Gambians that went home started to experience problems with bureaucracy, and people also looking at them and say, okay, kii dafa foog ne moom rek a jàng ndoo yi dañ dee dem America or Europe nga ñëw di jaay yabaate wala nañ leen won ne fii Gambia la. You see, so things like that, the art of not accepting people because in some way you're looking at them as maybe they're a little bit more educated or more exposed than you, so that fear factor of accepting them. So I think, I just wanted to delve a little bit on that because we've seen or heard a lot of experiences, and those experiences could, deter people, other people that are planning on making that move to actually actualize that goal. So, Michael, what do you think, needs to be done from those experiences drawn to make sure that we avoid a possible reoccurrence of those, at the country level?
I think that's a lot of education that has to be part of it. I don't blame them a lot because you going back there at home, you tell them something, key hamut bopam, but because they're saying that because they don't know like any better, like what you're talking about. So it's gonna be there for a while. It's not because they're saying that just because of any reason. Like so you don't know. And you go to Gambia with all these ideas and tell them, hey, I think this is how we should do this. I think this is how Norway should operate. I think this is how the police should operate. And the first assessment, like, you just went to Europe yesterday and you think you're better than us. It's not because diaspora think they're better than you, but they've seen a better system that could work in Gambia. And sometimes too, some of the diasporans, sometimes we're not realistic with some of our goals. We can expect life in America or life in Europe to be the same as life in Gambia. We can have goals, we can work towards them to improve them, or to even get 25% of what we want in the Gambia, and kind of just advise them, this is how I think we should operate. We don't have the finances, but if we implement A and B, we'll be able to reach there one day. And some of the aspirants, we go to Gambia, it's like, hey, Central be able to, government cannot do that. Or soon RBTHB. Benefit you can see this kind of machine or two, because we can. That's all we can afford. So we should find ways to work together to educate the Gambians and say, what I'm saying is not because I feel I'm better than you, but this has been better and I've seen it work in other countries. But also the diaspora should also realize that to present realistic goals, in nursing will tell you smart goals, short, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely goals that are really that will really work in the government environment, and that way we'll be able to work together. But unless we do those things, It's always gonna go back to the cycle. You will tell me something like, "Yo, I'm not gonna do it," and then the diasporans get frustrated. You know what? I'm just gonna go back to US. I'm just gonna go back to Europe and sit over there. And but if because there's always a break in communication of what is expected and what can be achieved. So it's us setting realistic goals and also educating the Gambian population. This is what we're doing, not because I'm better than you, but we have seen it work in the past. And if we try, we can always achieve and beat, and we have good results. So it's gonna be a two-way street between both of us.
All right, sounds good. I like that answer, Mike. You just hit it. So let's go to Mr. Cisse. So, Mr. Cisse, what do you think needs to be done in order to avoid those clashes, between the diasporans and the Gambian natives, to ensuring that, our relationship is amicable? If you could in the Mandinka language, that would be awesome.
I'll come. Okay. I think, for example, I will just give you maybe this saying that when you go to Rome, you do as Romans. So I think any educated individual or anyone from the diaspora should be, I think, should greatly take consideration of where you're going, and especially be okay. For African American descent, I think they should know this saying that if you go to Rome, you do as Romans. So that's the way Western or white people, when they go to Africa, that's the concept they put in their head. Means, I'm going to a place which is very different from mine. So somehow, for African American descent, they will have what we call a cultural shock. So there will be a cultural shock, even though they embrace the culture as theirs. But they were not being binged in that culture. So it will be a cultural shock to them. So I think it is up to greatly part. In fact, it's up to the person going to Africa or to Gambia, whatever, to go with a mind that is much more embracing. And also, I think you need to behave like a layman. For that, I will not blame the locals out there. I will not blame them, and I have no big advice. The only thing I think I will advise on that side is our government to make sure that they protect people and their properties for vandalism or for I don't know, for racketing or whatever. So those are the things that our government should really work on to make sure that give protection to people. Civil protection is maintained. But what concerns about the part of those that are living the West, going to Africa, you should realize and notice that I'm going to a society which is in terms of mentality, in terms of development, or is totally mediocre. So I think I will. So wala nyinti dal nimbitalan na bankolto. Naketan tolletin tolme yalan ko wuluta jele tamole en tol si jambe murun na ya. Nyanna lon na le konkata yale. So momen nyanne ya fole. So ni futa de jefana ike ya jibe ni nya because nteninka bojam jamuka falin kuma kono hani bi hani sam da because the thing is, be it America, be it around wherever, nyanna men understand and dolfana na karawo nyanna futandi la woto la kaje nyengbe men kona manke fenti man jana fananda ye dam menna ntol nyanna wole do kulam wole ko pour woye lo asim fulola wala nyenti nganna system na infrastructure na economy ngawol londi wole bambay sim fulola but nu wonde ye Africa da munella fonyole bije samole bije bankole bije nyulie la bankole la tamadula le concrete. But nothing changes. I think one should be very, very rational when you go into Africa to realize that I make no difference, and I give same respect like here I give when I arrived there. It doesn't change. It shouldn't. But ni futa de jeke sinol be fenke ke go lejibe no the developmental aspect it means artificial thing on the world. So it means those people they are more creative than our people. They are more creative, so that's the reason why we are counting onto them, onto how to call. We are calling. We're talking we are talking about this issue of diaspora, because traveling Akenya le yelendi kudol le cement transport no. So we are vehicles. So that the government nyan these people are vehicles of what of non-how of something from somewhere. So we are transport na kanafin to lejang. Ye kudol leje. No more membije government jama ba mel karanta. Or man, a greater percentage they went abroad to do studies.
All right.
I just want to say this. In the world, like in US, actually, there are positions which there are institutions in America whereby the government, the American government, they would rather prefer to give Ibrahim Senior a job in that position than a Chinese. Why? Munatinna. A Chinese dissident, they will, even if it's an American, naturalized there, they will rather prefer Ibrahim because they know there is what we call industrial spying. So they will not prioritize a Chinese because they know we African knowledge sunya janga sambe to le mantra nuclear like nuclear infrastructure lola civil nuclear central lola technology ni ta sunya la mansula la mantra project o fango kan but Chinese on ba kanne
so it's the more nyanta munekela Gambia to make sure that the new classes in Kamunsoto, you know, to make sure
they likely are dependent to the no problem with this because I will not have that problem with anyone. If Kanya ita kata dam coming for fundamentals in what bully kon ya je ko be dunia killing on kon imantra imambo ati kata mas ibe art killing on kon so sangole bije bankole bijam sangole be Gambia sangole bankole bije so munem ni ajibe bongol dem ni fito de bongol na fatata dula simon le fatata dron mo le wodada sonko le fo ñun le creative tam tolti
e ke to
be gloomy situation dundile kun kono me yalon ko you have to be natural in your head ni ka bo jam yalon ko fenti jam me kata Gambia.
Okay, so let's get we have 13 minutes to go.
Okay.
So Sheriff, you know, can you also add and elaborate on this a little bit more?
Yeah.
In Madinka.
Yeah, no more focus on the, you know, more
yeah, maybe it's a ila computer no man inside.
I'm more than about him in there. Come on, sir.
Yeah, game well.
Yo, I'm more than about him in there. Come on, for but Lunta no. Yo, I'm on Kulu Lato. I'm on Body, I'm on day long. So I pulled on the Jamulka and a magic quote. Yo, Afonia, Walla Colata Barbutum, for Moltica Sabar Lal Falanti. You know, I did do just over. You know, about Gambino Malafidoya, but Luntambayo, Monfalalo. About Kuma Pomuyan and Cafanyanta by La Bancoca. I come all for Tonya. You are Moyola Mandiadro, but I come all for Tonya. It ever America data Gambia Mojabe. You also have an exercise book. You are Alawo Nimambo Young Society Sifacono, I get a magic word. It's for Nya for Namuya and Gafa, you know, maybe at the Dia Jatin or what again. You know, but if Fonsi Camunya Lalting at the Sabar Lalti, Lunton Hanin Nimfania, you Wale Nara Wala Queta, Kadunko, Ninkara, more Sangar Leoldi, Natana online of Mol Dolfo, you know, Sinamola Bankota, Gambianolta, Keka Multi Mankamunti, you know. Manana Gamonja Mandi Fan, you know, see in South Africa. Other man can look down from the Gambian all found, you know, Moncada Gambia, able to Babudeta Gambia, if I'm going to Malamuno. Mala found William Cave, Uluta Jele, Kuluta Jele. It came about a Boraje, see Maya Dolga Muyala Cafo in La Silol from Mantama. So, I mean, but Budu, you know, Cafo to Babu later or Sue, Emmanuel Judla, more lemon traje. But our blood, Alale had a fin to that at a bantoro in Atana Fenso, as it will master, and he made them a Canadian Mandi Fana, here doyandi. I don't know about the half problem, but if I put Danjam for a long cafe in the more than the Silona, Emulun down it. He are on Jade, but Emulun down it. Yo,
me kondo but man diga kango nyum fana ni futa de jakana fali
yo akana fali yo fala bijele walla ye fudo di la ko be da fudo do mala ida ko do e kudo di la ya fa ite ame modernism also la why ta kala bari ni ba kala falan ake bunya no hormo kan yo dami yaran ka fo modo judula fanna wala ya fanye yo yalo nyo ke hanata fa manke African American no de wala manke Afro Caribbean or the British black British or whatever it is niake drong isidu mole kasila bari ko nga bunya no hormo kono o mo kulde mu yalan ka ite problem so la je so musun ne munin ngata la taji atele ya fo ba man ke je di bar ngamira ngata gambiano ya fo num ngani ma ka mun create online woni ma ka to create bare ba mo dun tawne di wala na mo ngani fo bari gambian dul fo ba ke kanne so Mr. Sisi fa nyami ni mu sila fulolti mulbi je false more respect nindal falanta je
katela fen ko la demande la computer demande
ngo ko mi mic ya fa nyami ani Mr. Sisi ya fa nyami sila fulolong
okay
tara je ngamul traje fonsi bunya mul fala yaran ka fa ngi traje fa dal fala sim bunya
yeah
so manyana nka fombe jutun ya tara ba sambala mo kambela problem man ke be kuti ni meta de yo fenta ya o meta na banko kande development challenges will be there don't tebe nda be solve no la tilikilin kono first time ta yo bari ni dana je yamira gambela problem o be nyana solve tilikilin kono dan wo mo mistake wolti tilikilin kute ni first time ta so mol nyanda wala lonna bari ni dana je e ko je be nyami e lafta nyambala mol be fit no level la bari nyanda la fara na lunta on yalan ka fay na tan nje ngeji akunke na la sido wala fo na dino wala fo yo so fonsi wota ngata muta nyalan ka fay no man silo ke nsaidan dila bari nsaidan dila nyala nyamu yalan ka fay na te kala bayrodi ngamira wo lan tammi dala do man
okay abaraka ba ke serif ilo kumo senata but lafta thank you very much. Janimida Mike here, and we love maybe Mike Nasim Marco and Ying for Fankodo, in Wolof, Surakamoto. So, Yalong need Tamata, for example. Ibe Gambia and most of us in Dolbe Gambia for Kabrimbe between 18 to 20. Then Bodaje, Northern America. So we have a certain level of exposure that kind of stopped at 20 years old. Then in other America, you're here for another 15, 20 years of your life. That's the moment of growth in your life, intellectually, and you're exposed. So you are now a person, wearing two cultural perspectives, right? So you have the Gambia one that stopped at 20. You have this American one all the way to between 35 to 40. So, in your eyes, the way you see things are different. So now if you all of a sudden decide to go back home and you find yourself in Gambia, those two cultural perspectives start to clash. With the person that been in Gambia 30, 40 years of their life, maybe they travel maybe for meetings and stuff like that, but that's where it stops at. So in terms of exposure, you've seen things. Like Mike alluded earlier, you want things to be done the right way. The right way is what you've been exposed to. And when you start seeing people deviating from that, it becomes a problem to you, and you become almost compelled to address the issue. So until that problem with most of the people back home is addressing it, they want you to turn a blind eye always and not talk about it. So Mike, can you just take us into that, maybe preferably Wolof English, but just tell us a little bit, that you can want to add to that.
Yeah, it's not a digger actually. Like you bari binjage Gambia, I guess yeah, high school or you have to the college. You get a Gambia, took in Indica. It doesn't have to be Europe or America, like so they made China or them Ghana, so South Africa, Kenya. So to get a Ghana, I guess Lenin Law Hamne, like Jangal tutor like Lamne, some of Gambia. Oh, linear link could defeat. Some of Gambia, Gambia didn't could defend, they could write. So nga tugal benen dika mu jangala leneen lu eswat nga jangala benen culture nekkon ne ñom ñoñu gën but am nañ loo xam ne ñu ngi ko def foo xam ne moo tane lu nekk def Gambie ay yenn saa yi ay Gambien si ñu bëri tukki nañ but compared to dëkk Gambien si bëri tukki ba pare ñun xam nañ ne Gambien si ñu bëri demuñ school tamit léegi la rek ñu xale ñu ngi door a dugg school ñëpp ñu ngi jànge but suñ yaay yu bëri suñ papa yu bëri demuñ school so gars yi amuñ exposure bëri gars yi xam nañ luñ xam Gambie but lu nekk xam beneen dëkk lu nekk xew beneen dëkk lu nekk def pour dimbale seen waa réew wi ñoom xamuñ si dara so ñun suñ tukkee ba delloo Gambia like man xam naa America oh lii la ñuy def America nii la ñuy doxalee dëkk bi nii lañ ko def nii lañ ko defee waaye Gambia laa yaroo tamit Gambia xam naa nii la ñuy defee affaire si Gambia waaye su ma demee ba Gambia war a wax nit yi foog naa ne lii nii lañ ko war a defee léegi suma maam bi dañoo wax yow da nga feebar man depuis ma nekkee xale nii lañ ko defee te dara jotuñu so nii lañ ko continuer so loolu noonu dafa naxari trop pour it's hard pour yow soo jógee out pour try pour convince guy this is not the right way am na beneen yoon boo xam ne moo tane lii ñoom tam ñu ne la well nii lañ ko yaaga defee te dara jotul so it's nii lañ ko continuer defee so those two thoughts it's always creates a conflict so su yàggee keneen dafa mer ida ko leen du la déglu du def loo bëgga o yow nga mer nga ne man xam nga naka dama sonn dama dem suma yoon so it's gonna be hard to find a balance xamu nañ ko utee nag like naka la ñoo utee balance bi pour balance those two cultural differences or those two thoughts that are ñu utee si dëkk yi pour indi ko Gambia but Gambien suñu mënee find a way boo xam ne dañoo mën a toog xalaat ñu ne Gambia dañ ko bëgg a defar like suñu gisee ko dem China mu am foofu beneen idée bu ees beneen mu jànga fa la ne lu ees moom nañ ko indi Gambia introduce ko ñu di toog déglu ko ñu try ko at least because yàgg nañu def dara waaye dëkk bi ne ko dem fen so at this point of time we should give an opportunity boo xam ne jàng na leen lu different bu ñu indi ko si dëkk bi because Gambia yàgg na it's like let's say 1965 independence dëkk yu bëri génne sa independence the same time ak Gambia but still Gambia dafa mel nu mel rek su nekk dafa gën a dellu gannaaw it's just still the same because ñu ngi téye fuñu téye bëgg ñoo jàngalu ees ñu ngi fa téye rek ba mu dëgër but ñun Gambians ñoo war a toog ñu ne all right léegi nag dañoo jàng si ñeneen dañoo xool ñi niñ ko nekk defee seen dëkk ñun tam ñu xool naka lañ ko mën a implémenter seen dëkk but as long as defuñ loolu dañoo nekk dañoo def the same thing over and over like every year ñu dellu si ñu nekk the same thing over and over ba pare diaspora sañoo mooy naka la you know lii nekk di work bàyyi ma dem toog Europe bàyyi ma dem toog America naa dem seeti sama waa dëkk bi ma dellu si and then at the end of the day it's going to be all affected because some family they're still in the Gambia so Gambian bi daal moo war a change xolam bi kanam mu déglu tuuti jànga from another person and Europe is not better US is not better but we have some ideas loo xam ne we can actually implement in Gambia they'll work it's going to be a change of attitude Gambia loolu mooy suñu biggest problem daal
all right change of attitude right there so feeling bugona we have about 3 minutes to go so we try to conclude the program so before we go we would like to do final words so we'll start with Mr. Sheriff Cora let's start with Musa Cisse and Musa what are your last words regarding the topic of discussion today
all right anyway I think what I want to say even is we need to understand I think the problem between the diaspora I mean the working class in diaspora and the working class in the Gambia. I think I should have elaborated on it, but this level of corruption that has been going on in the Gambia for not only today but for decades and decades now. I think the notion of diasporan going to Gambia or Gambian dissidents, living in the diaspora, going there with a successful life, semi-successful life, some with a very successful life, I think was a clicking factor that contributes also to the level of corruption in the Gambia. Because imagine you with the same you like you or us who were in class with someone in high school there. And after graduation, then for abroad and came back, with with fortune of wealth, and trying to display that, and also building houses and all kind of stuff. So I think the other guy who basically did all his career in the Gambia, seeing that, maybe also I think it's something that is at least it's a catalyst also. I think a probable catalyst that is pushing some to get themselves into corruption to equal you. So I think we need to also understand that phenomenon is playing, actually between a diasporan and a home dissident Gambian working in the Gambia. So in conclusion, what I want to say is, I think our government needs to take a serious approach. Hence, I don't know whether they really consider to take diaspora as the 8th region of our, I don't know, of our country or constituency, something like that. That's a giant step. And my advice would be, let that be put in place, and let us they should take diaspora as an asset, create a gateway, create a database, like Serif said, a database, and a channel of communication between an institution. A special bureau has to be dedicated uniquely for diaspora, for me. And also there should be a representative of the diaspora in the National Assembly. There would be more constructive arguments, because the guy is coming with foreign ideas, which are foreign to us. And also we should realize that, in fact, most of these people are living in a society that those are the very people who colonized us and gave us their system. This system that we are using, these Gregorian calendars that we are functioning on, it's not ours. That's why we're having sometimes these problems out there. We need to understand them. Our people are in those societies. The system the very system that is in place here, we are using, the mechanism that we are using is from the schema is from somewhere, and these people are living in those countries. So they should facilitate, they should facilitate to understand that diaspora is the biggest natural resource ever we can capitalize to utilize. Look, this guy said, you go on holidays in the Gambia. You go on holidays in the Gambia. Other countries are doing it if we are not doing it. Means what they do, holiday transfer of knowledge. You, Ibrahima, will go to Gambia. You finance is your domain. You can have or even go give lectures. You can give lectures to students in the University of the Gambia.
All right, so I get that point. So we're wrapping up, and Mr. Cesar. So let's kind of switch to Mike. Mike, what are the last words that you have?
I think the most important thing, like I've learned so far in this conversation, like what Sheriff stated, what Sheriff stated about creating that database for Gambians in the diaspora. Finally, so like the biggest problem, like the more talk halat kosa, there is no way you can find information. So we get that Gambia. There is absolutely no way. Like there's no way. Like he stated, like the health department, so creation website with so when you volunteer Gambia, this is what you can do, this way you're gonna go, and this this way you can work. Education department is saying we have teachers in USA and Europe who can help us teach. So you dimbale in Gambia, but so you have where to go to. Then just that, because some Gambia, you're gonna spend the whole day running around the city trying to find out how you can help. But if you could figure that out while you're here before going to Gambia, it's gonna make it much more easier. And Gambian government, I'm pretty sure right now, how many Gambians are outside Gambia? They're not even close, or what they're doing, or how experts in them. So even if they need help, they have no one to call to, because how one can. So what Sheriff have mentioned, that's really good. Creating a database for diaspora abroad, and creating a platform for how you can always go, and not just Gambians, but anyone who wants to go to Gambia and want to help, they can always go look at it and say, how can I help Gambia? This is steps I need to take. This is the form I need to fill. This is how much hours I need to do, and that's gonna really helpful for Gambia. because time is, you can pay. Time is very expensive. Someone offering you 10 hours free, 20 hours free, a whole week free of their job, and you're not even paying them. That's going to help the Gambian economy in the long term, and also it's going to help whatever department they work to. So creating that database and that information center is going to be really helpful for Gambia. And like Mr. Morris says, democracy, mom, it's so important. We can have those things in place, and if there's no democracy, it's just go back to zero. So if we get those things in place, Gambia can go forward. But unless we do that, we'll be stagnant.
Excellent points, Mike. Thank you for those last words. So I'll let it to my co-host here, Mr. Chef Cora, to also give up his last words.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Cisse, and thank you, Socialismo, for that wonderful insight. As a last word, it just goes back to what we all talked about, the importance of having a robust diaspora engagement policy on the part of the government. The government cannot solve all the problems, but I think, they are more resourceful. They have, the embassies overseas. They have, the consular services overseas, to create a platform, where the Gambians abroad and people of African ancestry interested, in investing in the Gambia or returning to the Gambia can tap into to contribute, towards, national development. The government has recognized the importance of its global citizens when it comes to economic development in the country. As a result, they've set, I believe, a bureau within the Department of Foreign Affairs. But the strategy is lacking. And that is where they need to do some capacity building to make sure that they have the right tools and the right mechanism to identify Gambians abroad with the skill sets, to create an effective, communication platform, and to have a sustained engagement with people overseas, to enable them to contribute effectively within the country. In the absence of that, like Mike said, you just would not know. And now I just saw, the news that Gambians abroad, would be able to take part, in the next elections. I mean, how are you going to do that, if you can't even identify where your citizens are? I mean, it's going to be a very big task. And this is something that we are discussing here. I hope, it gets, into the right audience, for them to understand. If you're going to enable your diaspora citizens, to vote in the next elections, you have to know who they are, because we need credible elections. I mean, we don't want them to create fictitious names abroad and then rig the elections. This is in the Gambia, Gambian citizens can go and look at the electoral registry to make sure that, it's done right. But if we cannot even identify our own citizens abroad, how are we going to enable them, to vote, let alone to take part, in national development? And this is something that is very important. And we have to have the government at the forefront of this. And it cannot be done only by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but since they are the intermediary between the Gambians abroad and other nationalities abroad, it has to start with them. Of course, there has to be some interministerial relationships, like the Ministry of Communication, can come and contribute towards having effective communication. The Ministry of Land, the Immigration Department, Chamber of Commerce, the Tango, the Association of non-governmental organizations in the Gambia, have civil society organizations and other agencies come on board within the government strategy to make sure that we have that one-stop shop that we've talked about to enable people abroad who have interest in coming back to Gambia or to invest in the Gambia to have that information and to have that ability to reach out to people on the ground to get themselves going. But most importantly, we already have people in the Gambia from the diaspora who are making a difference. Listen to them. I mean, I'm not advocating for any preferential treatment, but we need some incentives on the ground to make sure that the efforts that they are making are recognized and they give them the boost to succeed. That would be an incentive to attract other people from abroad to come home and do likewise. And more so, those people who were not born in the Gambia. Like I did mention, Black Seed, Black Acres of Gambia, and other people, that we don't know about. The Gambia government has to go out either through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Immigration, or through the Ministry of Tourism to use those people as an example. we have to put out that success story outside for the rest of the world to see. Ghana is doing it effectively. And Gambia also has to do this. We have the roots. Alex Haley wrote this, amazing book that the whole world knows about. But Gambia is not benefiting out of it because we don't have the proper strategy. So, in a nutshell, I don't want to draw my conclusion too long. But thanks again, Socialismo, and thanks, Mr. Morris and Ibrahima for the amazing discourse.
All right, thank you, Sheriff, for that. So to wrap up, I'll just summarize mine and make it quick. So I think the Gambia, we have our own problems, but we also do have our success stories. And we had to make adjustments even during colonialism and post the colonial era, during the Yaya area, Jawara area, and now the Adama Barrow area. We have to make adjustments, okay? And people migrate for different reasons, or people try to move back for various reasons. So we have to tap into that as a society to ensure that, we also look at the people that are willing to come and invest in our country, even if citizens or non-citizens. We have to look at them as contributors and not as takers. Do not be afraid of who these people are, okay? Let's embrace them and make the environment a little bit more conducive for everyone. And also, let's also talk about the success stories. Sheriff just mentioned how Ghana is doing it effectively. If you follow YouTube a lot, there's this YouTuber in Ghana called Wodi Maya. He does all these stories talking about, Mr. X left the UK to build apartments in Ghana, left America to build their first home in Ghana. So all of that, people seeing that get attracted to those stories and say, oh, wow, look at Ghana, look at how beautiful this place is. It's a potential for potential investors to come in, right? So and I also think that the diaspora should be looked at and embraced as a separate constituency, and the government should be serious in putting mechanisms together whereby we have, experts, to go out, and try to bring in investors, create the environment for investment opportunities, because it's a lot of money to be made in Gambia, a lot of investment opportunities, but then the channels and the strategies have to be put in place for us to ensure that, that becomes a reality. Like Morris mentioned, the utopic approach, everybody has ideas. We all have ideas, but transforming those ideas into reality. So if you're my age, or maybe Mike, knows about this, back then at Lenderham Society, what did they say? They say pragmatism, not theorems, like by Raymond Jiba. So stuff like that, we have to find a way to be a little bit more of a pragmatic society and, transform our ideas into actions. And that's the only way we can have both the people at home and the people in the diaspora to come together and make sure that we form a nice community, a formidable community. So that's all we have for you guys today. And thank you, Mr. Sheriff, for always being here. Thank you, Maurice Cisse, and thank you to Michael Bass, for honoring our invitation, for coming. We really appreciate you. So all viewers, keep following us on Bega TV, facebook.com/Bega TV, and also do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Bega TV. Go ahead and subscribe and also hit the notification button so that you can be one of the first to see any uploaded content. So guys, again, I thank you for being here with us today. I hope, someone else that learned something, from, the knowledge that we shared amongst ourselves today. As again, see you next week, same time at 12 p.m. Central Time, which is 5 p.m. Gambian time. Until we come our way again, I'm Ibrahima Senghor and my co-host, Sheriff Cora. Thank you guys, and I'll see you guys next Saturday.